While the worldwide ramp-up of renewable energy is going to create jobs up and down the value chain and has the potential to provide sustainable economic growth, there is an acute shortage of skilled labor in the sector, particularly in markets that are set to grow exponentially in the coming years. We heard it already yesterday, and again just this morning, certification is key. And educating expert workers is essential in fighting the global climate crisis. The session that we have right now is going to look at how countries and institutions can fill that gap with more vocational training, efficient syllabi, more training of trainers, and the use of remote and on-site learning. And I'm so happy now to be joined by my panel. I'm going to make these introductions short. This is an important topic. I want to get right into what we have today. On the left of your screen, ladies and gentlemen, we're joined by Dr. Kristina Celic. She's the Director General at the Directorate for Energy at the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development in Croatia. She holds a doctorate in the technical sciences in the field of electrical engineering and has more than 33 years of experience. Joining us online is Stephen Biabato. He's the Deputy Minister of Energy in Tanzania and a member of Parliament, Bukoba constituency. He holds a master's degree from the Mzumbe University, Morogoro, and a postgraduate diploma at the Law School of Tanzania. Hello, welcome. Next, joining us again in our Europasaal is Dr. Rabia Faruqi. She's an international economic development expert dedicated to sustainable energy and progressive socio-economic development. She is currently the director of the Knowledge, Policy, and Finance Center at IRENA. Welcome. Next in line, Bertolt Breit, CEO of the Renewables Academy, RENAC, here in Germany. He founded it in 2008 and has been building up different service lines related to capacity building on green energy technologies worldwide. Hello, welcome. And right next to me is Ranisha Basnet. She works at Energypedia, which is a nonprofit, and you've been with them since their founding days. She has more than 7 years of experience in the renewable energy sector, and her expertise lies in research and advocacy, knowledge management, and communications. This is an incredible panel that we have assembled this morning. I want to get right into it. This is the part where I have to be a little bit stern with you all and say, we have so much to get through today. I'm going to ask you for your the first round of questions. You have about 2 minutes to respond, and thank you so very much. I'd like to start off with our first two ministers on the panel, Dr. Celic and Mr. Biabato. Why is there a shortage of skilled workers in the renewable energy sector in your countries? I'd like to start with you, Dr. Celic.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. And I would like to underline that Croatia is well known for its quality higher education system. It allows us to have in 2007 our strategy, and we turn to renewable energy sources, to sustainable development, and it helps us to be on this part until today and to manage to have the different technologies in our countries, such as sun, such as hydro, such as wind, also geothermal energy utilization. So this is very important to know, to need to have really good basis on education to achieve the energy transition, and to have the good place strategies and to use indigenous sources. This is the most important of us, to know how to use and how to perform different technologies in energy sector and to use it. And for this we need to have good skill and education system and skilled workers. So we heard today just transition. Just transition means also to use knowledge that we have and to transform that knowledge to new technologies, to emerge the use of these technologies. So in Croatia, we are connected our legislation, regulatory framework, administration bodies, with faculties, and we are online each day, I could say, to manage this transition, to see what the best options are and how we could, from the elementary school, speak about energy, speak about sustainable development, then through high and education of the faculties and universities, put this in the frame how we will act on some project, because the learning is the best to learn on the projects, how to develop projects, how to develop facilities, and how to maintain it. So this is the procedure, and also we need to know where to put these new facilities, new renewable sources. What our spatial planning need to have, so our spatial plans need to have. So this is a really big job to do, and it needs to be to connect all those stakeholders. And first of that, you need to have the clear strategy that you want to perform renewable energy sources.
Absolutely. This clear strategy is vitally important. And we're going to come back to this strategy, this question of strategy later in the panel. I'd like to go now to our virtual panelist, Minister Biabato of Tanzania. If you could speak for a couple of minutes about the shortage of skilled workers in the renewable energy sector in your country.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, thank you. Back home in Tanzania, we are doing just a great job in the Ministry of Energy. We are not so much far, we are not so much behind, but we are struggling to make sure renewable energy has experts and provide a quantity which may add up to the already installed capacity into our country. As of now, we are still lagging behind. And as you know, we consider this big hydro as not renewable energy as such, but we have a little bit of renewable energy in below under 10 megawatt of electricity coming from different areas, and we harness somewhere around 30% of what we have into hydro. But as of now, we do not have anything coming out of wind. We get something from solar, not significant. So we can say we are still very, very far behind in main renewable energy sources. So that being the case, for instance, we have like 1,730 something megawatt installed capacity, but we have like somewhere like 10 to 15% of it being from renewable energy. So we are still having a big work to do. And from when we started generating our own electricity, we used to do what we had with water as hydro and natural gas we produce from fuel. So we did not invest much into the technology of renewable energy as of wind and solar and whatnot. So we still have a work to do. We are now going to that energy mix so that we can make sure we attain what we have to attain with others who are learning and who are in front of us in this fight and run to achieve renewable energy. So that being the case, we have not sufficiently done well with technological transfer, technological impartment into our people. We still have a work to do to make sure that we bridge that gap of people and technocrats and specialists into energy, into renewable energy.
Absolutely. Bridging that gap is one of the big themes that has come out of some of the panel discussions that we had yesterday. We're going to come back to you in just a minute. From now, I want to go to my guests from industry who are joining us here in the studio to ask you underlying reasons for the shortage of skilled workers in the renewable energy sectors in the different countries where you're all active. I'd like to start with you, please, Dr. Faruqi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jennifer. So just 3 points I'm going to make. The first one is that we have now countries with ambitious technological targets. And there's been always a technology-centric sort of approach to the energy transition. And the measures and the policies required to skill labor, the educational and skilling policies have not necessarily followed up. So for example, just in renewable energy, we estimate every year the number of workers workers in the labor force of the renewable energy sector, we're 12 million. We estimate that if we want to go to the 1.5, in the next decade, we will, just renewable energy will employ about 38 million people. So that means that we need to start skilling the workforce. Not only that, that's just renewables. Then there is also the energy transition-related jobs, and that's energy efficiency, power grids, and energy flexibility, etc., where we expect in the next decade to go up from about 16 million today to over 70 million. So that's one point. So obviously we need to rapidly scale up and train the education and train people in order to prepare them for the future energy sector, and to match the skill and supply, the skill supply and demand. What is really important, and I think we're still not there in terms of planning, is to make sure that we have an integrated approach between energy, labor, and education. The second point is that the sector is evolving very rapidly, and education and training systems are really lagging behind. So the fact is that we don't need, for example, skills only in the power sector, but we need them in heating and cooling. We need them for electric vehicles, so that's manufacturing, infrastructure, digitalization, access. I mean, there's a lot of direct but also indirect job requirements that will increase the skills needs. And finally, the last point is about the fact that we're really not tapping into the full potential of the talent pool that we have, and this is why I think a lot of interest is increasing in the inclusive transition. So, for example, just to give you an example,
I do want to come back to those examples. I want to make sure that our other panelists have an opportunity. No, this is fantastic. This is the challenge of this panel, is that I know there's a lot to discuss. But right now, I'd like to come to Mr. Breit from RENAC. Tell us about the shortage of skilled workers in the areas where you're active.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jennifer. So I would like to add on what Rabia said. So from our observation, the problem is oftentimes that there is many countries with quite high ambitions concerning NDCs and so on. But oftentimes it really lacks a strategy how to build up the training landscape in the country. So it's sparsely. Maybe there's like some universities doing something for the engineers, yeah. But then economists are forgotten, lawyers are forgotten. I mean, to really transfer the knowledge which is necessary for the project development in these countries to these faculties. Or technical vocational training is forgotten in some branches. So what is really oftentimes missing is a national strategy to build up skills according to job profiles required for different sectors on different levels along the whole value chain. So what we oftentimes observe is it's punctually there's something, but it's, the whole strategy is missing. This is the first point. The second point is that we also observe oftentimes it's the Ministry of Energy who has the obligation to fulfill the NDC targets and so on, but skill development is in the responsibility of the Ministry of Higher Education, in the Ministry of Vocational Training, or in the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and mostly these ministries are not working together to really define a national strategy. This is I think a big message from this BTD also to many nations. Please, if you want to really reach your targets, put all the ministries on board, invite all the ministries on one table and really develop a strategy for the skill development. National strategy,
you've said it a couple of times. I think that this is one of the big takeaways that's going to be from this BETD. Ms. Basnet, your thoughts?
Thank you so much. And reflecting on what my other panelists already shared, we work in the space of online knowledge management in the Global South. And there we see 4 A's that are always contributing to your question. The first is access. Is the resources, the knowledge material that we require to train or have skilled manpower, is it available? affordability. Is the material that is available, training that is available, is it affordable? Applicability, is it applicable to that particular setting? Does it is in comprising both the academic and the practical knowledge, which always is we see lacking? It's either too academic or too vocational. Do we combine both of the stream? And also, do we actually also concentrate on the local capacity building? Because if you don't have local capacity building, your project is not going to be sustainable. That's like the core of it. So we see these 4 A's, and also one more thing is also availability for the target audience that you are targeting. So if we could focus on 4 A's, like whatever resources or skills we are trying to build, make it accessible, affordable, applicable in that particular settings, that would be like wonderful for the renewable energy sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bassinet. I've got a question I'd like to, the same question for each of you again. And you spoke about this for a moment, but I want to dive a little bit deeper. On what educational level is the shortage most prominent and problematic? Are we talking about an academic level? Are we talking about on the craftsman level? And what are some of the obstacles, if we're looking at from our ministers, and we'll start with you in just a moment, faced in your countries or for the institutions that you see on a different scale? I'd like to start with you, Dr. Celic.
I will say that it is craftsmen and high education level. Academic level is not. They have their role and they are doing that well, and new technology. But we need a wide range of skills in this high education at craftsmen, and also to connect that with digital transition. So this is more challenging topic now in I think education world, how to manage, because when we speak about our strategy, it is, our energy strategy shows the way, renewable energy transition. And one of the measures, it is included here to educate people to have skilled workers on the sites, And what the transition brings to us, different and distributed production of electricity, particularly, and not also heat energy, connected with some technologies like biomass, geothermal, biogas. So what do we need? We need a wide range of technical skills, and also we need a wide range of, dispersive activities on the different sites, on the islands, on the mainlands, on the, those parts of we heard that a lot of people do not have electricity right now. That problem of cooking on an environment friendly and not healthy way. So this is the challenge that we are facing.
This is the challenge that we're facing. We talked a bit about that last night. We're focusing a lot on challenges. We'll get to some of the good things in just a second. But first, I'd like to go to Minister Biabato of Tanzania. I'd like you to name me, where are the problems on an academic level, in craftsmen? What are some of the problems faced in Tanzania?
The major problem we have is part of the technician and the artisan. That's those people we would need much to be in the field and do this and do that at all the time. We are not in a position to have many specialists because we do not have a large quantity of renewable energy installed into our area. So we need to have those more technicians, more artisan, more technical level, at the lowest grade, so that we can make sure all the time, as the fellow minister said, they can access everyone and offer the services needed, do this and that, to make sure that the renewable energy is in place all the time. And being innovative, to have a new thing out of what we have for now. So at the level, as we'll speak later, I hope we are ready for now to make sure we produce this skilled labor at all levels so that we can bridge the gap and make sure we have everything.
We're going to talk about that in just a second, you're right. But now I'd like to come back to the room. Dr. Faruqi, where do you see the problems?
So I'm going to concentrate on renewable energy. What we've done is looked at the segments of the value chain and try to identify what kind of skills and occupational backgrounds that are required. What is interesting is we found that about 30% are in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And another 5% are a higher degree education, such as lawyers and regulators, etc. But what is interesting is that the majority of the skills that are required do not necessarily need a university degree. So this is where obviously the necessary skills can be brought through alternative pathways, and you've spoken about vocational training, apprenticeship, on-the-job training, etc. So the challenges are different at different levels of training. So at higher education, the main problem is that they lag behind. They're usually slow at bringing in renewables into the curricula or create new courses. And then in vocational training, which is much more agile actually and flexible, one of the issues we have is when there is no regulation. So for example, if you have no regulation in the vocational training system, then you can have a solar PV installation program that is done without any kind of standard. So, but many countries, just mentioned by the Deputy Minister, but in Tanzania, but also in Kenya, are already integrating that in the regulatory framework, so that there are standards. So that's one of the examples. But maybe just to finish, in the energy context, energy access context, I think what is very important is that the skill building be also accompanied with local project development. And there are many examples which I'm sure my colleagues are going to speak about.
Fantastic. I want to get right to those colleagues. Mr. Breit from RINAC.
Yeah, what in fact oftentimes is missing is really the practical aspects of the trainings. Yeah, in universities, but also oftentimes in a technical vocational training, really hands-on practical training experience is missing. Oftentimes people are skilled, for example, in photovoltaics, and they never have built up a PV systems, installed or deinstalled or connected to the grid or put it into operation. And so this is, yes, I mean, formal, they have some kind of certificate or they passed the exam, but the practical aspect, this is something which is really missing. And I mean, yeah, the point that Rabia pointed out, to have this combination with project developer in reality is really a good approach. Yeah. And another thing is also we observe oftentimes companies, they are doing training on the job for the technical level in installation, operation, maintenance. On the one hand side, because maybe there is no training facilities or not opportunities to send their staff for training. But the other is also the perception that they save money. They don't want to spend money on training. And this is a big problem in general about like skill development in the energy sector. Yeah, many expect that, I mean, there's internet, so sending people to go to the internet and reading something is enough for training. This is not the case. I mean, you could just like buy 1,000 books and distribute it in a country and ask people to read them, but this does not mean they really digest it and know what they should have learned. Yeah, so this is really the difference. And this perception oftentimes to save a bit of costs for training, yeah, this calculation is not really practical, because
there is a lot about this learning by doing aspect, but the importance, like part of that vital training is to get in there and then actually to be doing it and to be trained on it before you are deployed to do it sort of out in real life. I saw your colleague next to you, Ms. Basnet, nodding along, and I want to make sure. Tell us, please.
No, I absolutely agree with everything my panelists said, and actually adeptly summarized everything. But just to add to that, I think along with the practical on-hands training, what is also needed is exchange between the practitioners. Because many times, as an engineer myself, I learned, how to do it. But when I actually went to the field, I realized, oh my God, many of the indicators that I learned in my studies, they don't apply. I need someone who has done it before to actually give me some of his or her input. And those are the exchange that is also missing. But I would also like to bring one complete new point in the agenda is, as we move towards energy transition, we are moving from pure renewable energy to more nexus. So we are talking about energy and agriculture, energy and humanitarian help, energy and water. So that means we are also merging two specializations. And that's going to be, because we see more and more demand for knowledge in this sector, that's also going to be a huge topic that will come up, that we will need need more and more either skilled manpower in either two, whom we can then further kind of train to merge into one, or some breezing course that kind of helps us to produce the manpower who can work in nexus topics, because those are going to be the new challenges in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've looked at some challenges, and in some ways it's lovely that there's agreement about where these challenges lie. But I also want to look forward by looking back. What has worked well so far? What have been some strategies that you've said, okay, this is in terms of skill development, this is something that we've seen working? I'd like to start with your perspective from Croatia.
Oh yeah, what is working? We have realized a lot of projects in the last 15 years when we started with our strategy on renewable energy sources. So we built a lot of new facilities, 1/5 of whole installed capacities in electric sector. We have nowadays from renewable sun, wind, biomass, geothermal. So learning by doing is the right word and the right way how to achieve these targets, having good working, good and skilled workers. And we managed to do that. Yes, we implement maybe different technologies abroad. We do not produce all of them, some. But nowadays we have skilled workers on these different areas. Also, we transform those who are working in this mining industry, hydrocarbon industry, and they now are in the focus. They are focused on geothermal energy. So this is how also this transition works. From the other side, we have also industry, very powerful industry producing generators and motors for hydropower plants. Also, they turn to wind industry, for example. This is how it works and how it works well. So this is our experience, and now, for example, we are starting with hydrogen. Last week we adopted Croatian hydrogen strategy, and this will speed also the process. So you need to be dedicated to and focus to your targets to manage them.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to get the perspective from Tanzania, Minister Biabato.
Yes, for us, what we see has worked for us in the past is to have those exchange programs of making sure our people down here comes to you. For instance, we have had several exchange programs with the Germans, and we are getting some other skilled labor from other areas to come in and input some knowledges to us. That is one of what we do. The second thing we do, we have some hydro projects down here going on. We make sure in every hydro project we have a simulation center for making sure that these people who are there just learn practically and then acquire knowledge of what they can do. And we are now scheduling the exchange program and further technological studies so that we can go into what the minister has been saying from Croatia, going to geothermal, extending to biomass and some other renewable energies, so that we can be in a position of having.
Oh, I think our connection may have just. Yes, I think that.
You lost me?
I think we lost you, but you're back. I'll give you another second to wrap up.
Okay, I was saying we are making sure we don't stop this exchange program and making sure maybe when ending up we'll say what we do with education back home so that we can make sure we have exchange programs to advance knowledge of what we have and go back into the renewable energy sources to make sure we have everything we want.
Thank you very much for that perspective from Tanzania. I'd like to bring it back now into the studio. Dr. Faruqi from IRENA, what's been working well that you've seen, and why?
So I think we have to be conscious of the fact that and the energy transition will bring misalignments with it. They're of temporal nature, they're of geographic nature, they're of educational nature that we spoke about. So as long as we look at that from the onset, I think we're bound to have solutions and plan for them. So, for example, you have very often project developments that are outside urban centers when the skills are concentrated in urban centers. So what you should do is bring those training centers as close as possible to where the potential is. And this is what happened, for example, in Morocco, where you have 3 training centers that have been put close by the project development, and that has worked quite well. So that's just to give you an example. I would like to just make one more point, which is the fact that we were talking about how to exchange best practices, etc. And I think that is essential because we have seen a lot of successful example, and IRENA is actually launching a new global platform on education for the energy transition together with UNESCO and other institutions. And in that, the main point here is to bring all the different stakeholders between industry, project developers, governments, etc., and to basically share best practice and at the same time, the first thing that we will be doing actually, and I think that's another thing that is needed not only globally but obviously at the national level because it would be much more accurate, which is a skills survey that is aimed at employers in order to better identify actually the specific needs of the sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's always exciting for me to get to host a panel like this to see how fellow panelists pull out their pens and start writing something. I want to turn now to you, Ms. Fred. I saw you pick up your pencil and make a note. If you want to comment, please.
Yeah, some points more specifically what we see, what is working well in the skill development sector is, as I mentioned already, practical-oriented trainings are key. The second thing is the trainings should really focus and relate to the specific job profiles. It doesn't make sense to train people in something they will not work in, which oftentimes happens. Yeah, so you can save a lot of time, resources, energy, and money if you really focus to what the target group needs to learn. Also, we observed that if you build up the trainings with an exam and a certification, this helps a lot. So, I mean, then it's also comparable and clear what participants will learn. And also, I mean, they will use this for their personal development. And also, we noticed what is working well is this concept of blended learning that we use a lot. So, oftentimes we combine a lot of online training, which can be done whenever participants can or have time, together then with later face-to-face training. Yeah? So, with this kind of package, this is quite economic.
And I can imagine that the pandemic of the last 2 years has sort of brought this blended learning style. We realize that there are ways to do this that there weren't pre-pandemic.
Yes.
To wrap this one up, Ms. Basnet, what's worked and why?
Thank you so much. And again, building on my panelist's answer, especially what Ms. Faruqi pointed out with the local practitioner training, I think you see it so much prominent in Southeast Asia. If you look at the microhydro sector, in the 1980s, a lot of trainings and investments in terms of resources was done to build up the local capacity, such that if you look at it now, there is a very vibrant microhydro value chain with manufacturing trainings on site in the region, and there are continuous exchanges between practitioners who are not only from the region but across different continents, and who are then coming up with new collaboration ideas, new technologies, and so on. So definitely local capacity building, that is the key if we want to achieve energy transition. And second, to build what Bernhard already mentioned about exchanges. We have seen it again and again, just having a bunch of experts in the room, whether it's online, on-site, and let them talk. So much good comes out in the room. There is so much of exchange of ideas, collaborations, inter-regional, inter-country, again, you name it. So really, if we focus on local capacity building, practical exchange, I think those are the two ones that in our experience we see working really well.
Thank you so much for that. I have to say, you have been a fantastic panelist. I want to keep going. We got 2 more questions to get through. I'll start again with our ministers. is there a plan that your respective governments has for the development of specialized workers in the renewable energy sector? Do you have any upskilling measures that specifically benefit global phase out of coal and therefore decarbonization through renewable energies? I'd like to ask you to limit your responses here to 2 minutes, and I'll start with you from Croatia.
Yeah, we have a smart education strategy. And why it is important to have this word smart? Because we heard here also that we need different kind of activities: agriculture, transport, different sectors when we applied energy and where we use energy. Civil engineering, we need a good planning for doing that. So education and training of people who will carry this development of green transition is at most important in these days. And we need to start even on the research level and also on this commercialization of, that means that we need to connect also different segments, different sectors, and to have a really skilled and smart working force. This is why not to focus to only one segment, but to broaden it and to have a basis. First, to have a basis of what's going on in the transition, who are where there are where the segments that you need at the base knowledge, and then to apply on some segments. I will support this thing that it is very important to have face-to-face trainings, not only via internet, because it is how it is best to share knowledge.
Absolutely, it is. I can only support what you say. I'd like to go now to Deputy Minister Biamato in Tanzania. Does your government have a specific plan when it comes to skill development of specialized workers in the renewable energy sector?
Yes. Nationally,
Mr. Biamato.
hello?
I think we got you back. Yep, you're back.
Yes, I'm saying in renewable energy, locally we have the National Energy Policy 2015. We have the Power System Master Plan 2020 update, and we have some other put in place regulations to make sure that we do not lag behind when it comes to imparting knowledge and bridging the gap in renewable energy. But on top of that one, when we want to go globally, now we have made sure that we should join the international organizations from all over the world to make sure that we go with the clean energy and cooking energy, power and whatever. For instance, we are now joining the Sustainable Energy for All. We are going into the International Solar Alliance. We are going to International Renewable Energy Arena. We had them yesterday. Center of Excellence for East Africa, Renewable Energy, and so forth and so forth. So that when we are not closed indoor, we can share what other fellows share, so that we can bring that knowledge back home and share the World Day note of making sure that we do not emit a lot of carbon and whatever into the air. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sticking with us through these technical difficulties. It's great to have you with us here virtually.
No problem.
I'd love to ask now my three panelists left in the room. What are, as you see it from your perspectives, what are the skill development and capacity building preconditions to developing RE and EE markets? Are there any educational or re-educational upskilling measures that specifically benefit the global coal phase-out and decarbonization through... Yeah, you're already nodding. Please, go ahead from Irina. Dr. Farooqi, please.
Thank you, Jennifer. I don't know how you do it to speak so fast.
I'm so sorry.
No, I just want to tell, I've told you before that the energy transition will bring a lot of job creation. So that's the good news. Obviously, it will outweigh the job losses that we'll have in fossil fuels, but that still means that we have to take care of the fossil fuel workers, and we will need some reskilling and upskilling measures to accompany the labor market interventions. Now, the good news is that some of these skills are transferable. So, for example, the offshore oil and gas industry has specialist skills that really could fit with the offshore wind industry, for example. Another good news is that we have seen through different studies that that some of there are synergies between the coal industry and solar PV skills. It is estimated that about 40% of coal-fired power plant workers could be transitioned in the PV sector. On the other hand, the coal mining industry, about 30 to 35% of jobs are specific to the industries and will require some kind of reskilling. A very important measure that we've seen that works, and this is in terms of this transition, is to have a transition training fund. So training have large skills training, and this is very important to have these funds. Like we've seen them in Spain, for example. We've seen in terms of coal phase out also a nice example in the state of Colorado, which created a bill that has a $15 million provision to assist coal-dependent workers and communities in this transition, and 7 million of that is actually for apprenticeship and training programs for workers. But that means that you also have to have the means for that, and I'll talk about that maybe later.
We'd love for you to bring that up in our closing statements, which we'll get to after we talk to our panelists. Please, Mr. Breit.
Yeah, Rabia mentioned a lot already.
I'm a terrible influence, please.
but I mean, this is exactly the point I also want to make. So the jobs which will be lost in the coal industry or for coal power plants, a lot of them these people, I mean, they are electricians, they are engineers, so they can work in the field of renewable energies, either in solar PV or in the wind or bioenergy. So a lot of potential is there to really, I mean, go further working in the renewable energy sector, yeah, without too much reskilling, yeah. And another part, of course, for them, they really need to be reskilled to other professions. That's true.
Yeah, reskilling is going to be an incredibly important part of this, but I absolutely agree. You make excellent points. Ms. Bassanet, please wrap up this round for us.
Thank you so much. Maybe I'll focus on the first part of the question, why it's a precondition.
Yes.
And maybe tweak it a little bit to add local skill development to that. That's the keyword I'm going to use again today, because you can have a couple of engineers fly onto a location, build an energy infrastructure, but if you don't have the local capacity development, who is going to maintain it, who is going to do the after-sales service, who is going to be responsible for the sustainability of it. So really, without local capacity building, you cannot expect to have a sustainable energy infrastructure project in the long term. So that's my 2 thoughts on it. Thank you so much.
Okay. We have lots of time left over for your final thoughts. So we've been too fast all day long. Now we can all take a deep breath. I'd like to ask for your final thoughts on this before we end our panel. I'd like to start, of course, with Minister Celic from Croatia.
Thank you very much.
Please be sure to use your microphone.
Thank you. Sorry. I would like to say, maybe we didn't mention funding. For example, our new hydrogen strategy envisaged to establishment of a regional hydrogen center. For that, we need also to have human resources, but also we need to have to equip that and to work and to finance this. This was the main question actually when we were communicating this strategy, how to proceed, and will only industry and the potential investment bring knowledge, or we need to do that parallel. We need to do that in parallel. So this is just one example of what we are doing and how we need to proceed in this green hydrogen industry, for example. We have really a lot of we are looking at the hydrogen, green hydrogen as new fuel, so particularly important in transport sector to mention that. But I would like to conclude with one sentence. With given the ambition goals, it is necessary from the earliest stage to teach and support young generation to think critically, take initiatives and respect nature in order to gain understanding and skills in the fields of environment, sustainability and climate change. And for this, renewable energy transition will help to do that and to achieve goals.
Absolutely. These are inspiring words. Thank you so much for sharing those with us today, Minister Celic. I'd like to go to our virtual guest, Deputy Minister Biabato of Tanzania, for his final thoughts on today's panel. I think we might have to come back to you in just a minute. So I'll turn now to our panelists here with me in the room. Dr. Faruqi from IRENA, your final thoughts on today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. So 2 thoughts. I'll go back to the point that I didn't make in the beginning, which is that we don't tap into the talent pool that we already have. And this is why a lot of people are talking about an inclusive transition. Just to give the example of gender, we did a survey a couple of years ago on women in the renewable energy sector. We found that about 32% of women. And that's much better than the conventional sector, which is about 22% in oil and gas. But still, we can do better. That's one. Second of all, we have to look at technology by technology within the renewable energy sector. Whereas the global gives us 32%, when we did the survey for the wind sector, it was 21%. So much closer to the conventional sector. So there, again, there is a STEM issue, which means that we found out that 28% of women are only in the STEM jobs in renewable energy. So there is a long way to go. And again, educational policies and measures will be essential in order to promote women, but all other minorities, quote unquote. We're not really a minority, we're about 50% of the population. But the second point I'd like to make, and it goes back to your point, I fully agree with local capacity, building local capacity. And this is intimately related to the kind of development that we have and the neoclassical paradigm of economics that we have embraced for centuries, for decades rather. So the point is that renewable energy is great, but we also need to diversify our economies that are, for example, commodity dependent, and we have to make sure that the local value is created. So, for example, it's not just about renewables, but it's, for example, a new topic now on rare earth materials, for example, where we go and basically take the raw materials and bring them to the rest of the world. No, local value has to be created. It has to have a benefit for local domestic value. Otherwise, we're going to run into the same kind of problems with basically a predatory type of development, a paradigm which we need to move away. I mean, doing renewables and energy transition doesn't mean that everything is going to be rosy for everybody. So we need to, from the onset, to make sure that other economies that are dependent today on technology, etc., from certain regions, have the opportunity to also diversify their energy sectors and beyond, and take along the segments of the value chain, really create domestic value. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Diversifying, incredibly important. And I do want to come back to the first point that you made about girls in this, I think you said 28% in STEM, exactly. And I think it's important to say this is, we're talking about reskilling people who, like me, who are working, but we also need to be paying attention to education much younger. Make sure that girls aren't weeded out in high school or aren't weeded out when they go on to study at university, that we can get that because we are 50% of the population, or 52%. I am very happy to see that our virtual guest is back. I want to make sure we come back to you. Deputy Minister Biabato of Tanzania, please, for your final thoughts.
Okay, thank you, and I am so sorry with this interruption of the communication. Finally and lastly, I would wish to say we in Tanzania, and I hope many of the African countries, are eager to move faster into renewable energy. And down here, we are looking to make sure that when it comes to 2025, at least we have somewhere like 10% of the full installed capacity of our energy into coming from renewable energy. And maybe, as I said before, we have those initiatives which are in place, making sure that we attain what we have to attain. But I should tell what we have. We are welcoming investors down here to invest into renewable energy. We are looking to have somewhere in the future 1,100 megawatt coming from solar and 800 megawatt coming from wind, and some other areas like biomass and geothermal. So we welcome you. Whoever wishes to invest back home here, environment is conducive and very, very much favorable for anyone. And to make sure that I assure you it is favorable, the ECO project, which was said about yesterday, at least 90% of that pipeline passes through Tanzania, and it is safe down here, and it is of big advantage to both of us. So that is what I could say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those final words. I'll bring it back to the studio. Mr. Bride from RENAC, your closing statements.
Yeah. Nations should see NDCs not as a burden, but as an opportunity, and also reflect on the co-benefits of climate mitigation. So one co-benefit has been mentioned already, like local job creation, local value creation. There is a lot in it, especially for the renewable energy and energy efficiency sector. Yeah? And also to what my colleague says, it is so crucial to really build up local training infrastructures with local trainer pools, with local training institutions. It is really not economic to send trainers around the world all the time. And this is possible to really build up these local training institutions. And also, as Rabia mentioned, it would be good to reflect on where these skills are needed, in which geographical region, yeah? So close to where the investments will be also. And again, closing remark, I think it makes sense that nations, meaning different ministries, really sit together, see, okay, what is the co-benefits of climate mitigation, what can we achieve in our country concerning the local value creation, health, also gender aspects and so on. I mean, to really have the whole opportunities to see them, and then as a next step, really to decide on developing strategies for skills development on different levels, for the different genders, for the different professions along the value chain.
Thank you so very much for that perspective. Our last panelist, final statements, please. Ms. Basnet from Energypedia.
Thank you so much. Again, my colleagues have adeptly summarized everything, so I'll just try to add something to that. Especially with the local capacity building, one more point to add is there is now a lot of resources, training material, but the question of affordability is still a big issue. So as long as those are not affordable, applicable, or available to the target audience, we are still at a loss. So really urging everyone to make it affordable, because it needs to be affordable. And also the second thing is, because I'm a practitioner myself, it's always assumed that practitioners exchange happen automatically, organically. They will just come together, we will exchange. But in real life, it doesn't. You need to foster it, you need to nurture it, you need to bring a couple of experts in the room, you need to provide that environment so that there is an exchange. Just the thought that it would happen organically is it's more, I would say, an ideal scenario. So really, let's foster more exchange between practitioners, because there is so much of learnings in the sector. And every time when we have such kind of events where people come together, exchange ideas, and bring their experiences, there is so much of collaboration happening. So really making resources available and really focusing and fostering exchange between practitioners at all level, online, on-site, at all level. Thank you.
Thank you. Fostering exchange is what we want to do here at the BETD, and absolutely this needs to be taken back to the practitioners as well. I see you also nodding your heads. Please, Mr. Bright, I saw you wanted to say something else, and we've got time, please.
Yeah, I wanted to add something on the question, who pays? Yeah.
Okay.
We need to see and differentiate between the education, either on like technical level or on academic level, and also the further training. Yeah. So, what concerning educational programs for electricians, for plumbers, for mechanics, but also in the academic level, I think in the very end, for a government, it is not so much expensive to just vary and modify the syllabus of the study programs in the university for the technical vocational training. So this has to be done once, yes, but I mean, it's this kind of like lessons on PV installation, for example. I mean, they're replacing others, yeah. So, and in the end, you don't need to have a longer program. So this is just to see, okay, what kind of like the old topics that have been taught can be removed and what can come in. So in the end, will not be so much more costs, except for, I mean, having this process. Concerning the further training, there is a segment where like people from industry, commerce, companies could go in and pay for it. But again, this is a bit small also, and it depends on the possibility if you can really pay for that. So it depends on the country, it depends on the amount of money which is available there. And also for public servants, which play a crucial role, yeah, for giving applications of construction, for the regulators, for, I mean, yeah, providing all the different services where public sector is involved. There needs to be also the understanding that public sector somehow has to invest for the training of public sector staff. This is not falling from heaven, yeah. So again, it's a question who pays. In this case, again, it's the public sector. So coming back to where private companies or private people, participants can pay, this is for the further training, but also to a limited extent. So this has to be seen.
I think it would be fantastic for all of us if money just did fall from the sky. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The idea of funding incredibly important. Unfortunately, we are now out of time. I really want to thank so much my excellent panelists. What a fantastic way to start out this morning on day 2 of the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue. Once more, joining me from Croatia, Minister Kristina Celic, joining us virtually from Tanzania, Minister Steven Bayabato, from IRENA, Dr. Rabia Faruqi, from RENAC, Mr. Bertolt Breit, and from Energypedia, Ms. Ranisha Basnet. Thank you all. It has been such an honor and such a pleasure to have you here with me. We've got a few people in the hall. I'm going to go ahead and give you a round of applause. You were fantastic. Thank you all so very much.